I'm joined now by Michael Wilds via Skype. He's a former federal prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn, New York, and a legal commentator. So, Michael, for people outside of Washington, D.C. and outside the United States, what does this all mean?
Well, it's very confusing to people outside of the United States to see a president of the United States actually fire and take such bold action as firing the lead investigator for the United States, the FBI, a stellar reputation. Look, you know, this does not reflect well. It doesn't reflect well on both sides. And it's an extraordinary experience to watch the pundits on the right and the left both giving the president accolades and at the same time criticizing him. There's an ongoing investigation as to the president's entanglements with Russia, and this is a man that Hillary Clinton credits as killing her chances of becoming president of the United States. The line that the FBI director allegedly crossed was leaving the shores of being an investigator and actually coming to some kind of prosecutorial conclusion. That, in my opinion, was the beginning of the end of his public service, a storied career. He's 56 years young, very young, and to go out like this is, in many ways, a disappointment for him, his family. But again, we have to get the confidence restored in this beautiful institution, and we have to make sure, whether you're on the right or left, that the people leading investigations are beyond reproach.
What do you make of the timing of all this, the possible reasons, the motivation behind this? Because as you mentioned, Comey has been criticized from both sides, but in recent months seemed to have President Trump's support. So what happened?
Well, this is a president that is a practical gentleman. And in all truth, he doesn't keep people in place unless they're deserving of that trust. It does raise great suspicion, as Senator Schumer has placed the eye on the media this evening, on the notion that the president may have done this because of the onslaught of an investigation against his collusion with Russia. I doubt, though, in great truth, knowing what I know about both sides of the aisle and the political process, that there would be anything untoward here, because the FBI, in all truth, continues its investigations regardless of who's at the top. We saw the summary dismissal of all the federal prosecutors, the U.S. attorneys throughout the United States in recent months when President Trump relieved them. And truth be told, President Obama had done that as well. So it is unorthodox for the director of an FBI to be given leave of his job. It's generally a 10-year term. But in all truth, the president is privy to a lot of information. And while it does look suspicious, it does rank very very controversial that the president feels in great truth, as does the Secretary of State Clinton, that this gentleman played a role in politics where he shouldn't have. There is a forensic, sterile nature of what a prosecutor and an investigator should be. And when the lead investigator crosses a line, I think that they have to be held to a very high standard.
So you mentioned that the investigation could likely continue despite the fact that he's not at the head of the FBI anymore. So what's next, and where do they go from here?
Good question. So right now there is an acting gentleman in charge of the FBI. The question is whether or not Senator Schumer and the Democrats can put together enough of a posse to put a push politically to get an independent prosecutor or investigation, and who the President of the United States is going to appoint in this position. It's going to be all eyes on this individual and these next steps. But I can tell you, as a person who served 1 U.S. attorney, a second U.S. attorney in the few years that I served as a federal prosecutor, the good offices of these extraordinary men and women, these great lawyers, and the FBI, who has a stellar reputation for decades, will continue its mandate. And if there's anything untoward in any side of the aisle with any public official, they'll eventually get to it. So all eyes of the media are on. We have to, make sure that this president, who may appear impetuous but is a practical leader, is given deference so that he can make sure that this agency has the right leadership. And forensically and legally, we will eventually see the evidence and make judgments. Again, the notion that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was not elected because of Mr. Comey's involvement, the notion that President Trump may have relieved Mr. Comey because of an investigation into his connections to Russia. These are extraordinary times and extraordinary measures. So a little time and a little reflection is necessary for us to draw our conclusions.
All right, Michael Wilds in New Jersey, thank you for joining us.